Hey guys, I'm the 50s Kid. By popular request, I'm going to do a video about how to clean fuel injectors. I think it's an interesting topic, and first I want to go over the specific conditions under which you might want to clean your fuel injectors, because you might be a little unsure, you might have a problem, something going on, and you might not be sure, and you've done this, and that, and oh well, you haven't done the fuel injectors yet, so you might as well. Yeah, maybe, but I really want to teach you like why you should suspect that your fuel injectors might be clogged. The specific situations where, oh yeah, possibly fuel injectors are clogged. So we'll go over that, and then I will show you how to actually clean them. So let's get started. So to understand when you might suspect that your fuel injectors are clogged and need to be cleaned, you need to understand lean conditions. When you have a lean condition, this is when you might suspect your fuel injectors are clogged, but you need to understand which type of lean condition you have. In fact, to diagnose a lean condition, the first step is to determine what type of lean condition you have. The way you do that is you look at fuel trims, and fuel trims come in short and long-term fuel trims, okay? The way you look at them, the way you read them is you get a code reader that could actually give you live data. So I've done a review on this Foxwell NT201. It's a really inexpensive way to actually get fuel live data. You could also get one of these ELM 327 interfaces. This one is a USB, a Wi-Fi one, sorry. You can get those on eBay. They're really, really cheap. And then you can use a smartphone with one of these. That'll give you live data. That'll give you your fuel trim numbers. Fuel trims are how the engine corrects, an imbalance in the air to fuel combustion ratio. So you need to look at these numbers in order to determine what type of lean condition you have. Now, here's how you make sense of it. You want to look at your numbers and you want to write down, if you have a bank 1 and a bank 2, write them both down. Some cars are only going to have a bank 1. You want to look at your fuel trims when your engine is idling, around 700 RPMs or so. Look at your shorts, look at your longs, write them down on the board. What you want to do is you want to add your shorts and your longs together on each bank. So for bank 1, you see we have 20% short term and 5% long term. That's a total of 25% fuel trim on bank 1. For bank 2, you do the same thing. 18 and 7 is also 25%. So that is also, so on bank 2, that is also 25%, and that's at idle, okay? Now, you want to get the same numbers when your engine is at speed. So sitting in your driveway, rev your engine, 2,500, 3,000 RPMs, it really doesn't matter. What matters is that the engine is no longer at idle. The engine's going, it's at speed. You want to look at your fuel trims again. Write down the same numbers and add them together. In this particular case, 5 and 5 is 10, 7 and 7 is 14. Now, look what happened here. At idle, they were 25%. At speed, they went down to 10% and 14%. What this means is that you have a vacuum leak. Confirmed, you have a vacuum leak. What's happening here is, imagine that this is your intake manifold, okay? It's really, an engine is just a big vacuum cleaner. It sucks in air, okay? So this is your intake manifold. This is the throttle plate. Okay, so at idle, the throttle plate's closed. At speed, it opens up. Now at idle, when the throttle plate's closed, let's say I poke a hole in this hose right here. Well, all of the vacuum is going to go right to that hole, and it's going to suck in as much air as it possibly can. This is what a vacuum leak is, right? But at engine speed, when you open up the throttle plate, you got all this air rushing in through this giant opening. Suddenly, that little tiny hole doesn't matter so much. So not as much air is going to get sucked in through there. That's what's happening in this test. That's what we're doing. We are comparing what our fuel trims are at idle and what they are at speed. And if they improve at speed, you know it was a vacuum leak. Now, if this was different, let's get some different numbers in here. So let's say you're at 5% short, negative 3% long. I threw this negative in here just so you guys can realize that sometimes you have to do the math this way. This is going to be a total of 2% because you're adding, 5 plus negative 3 is 2. Same thing here. This is actually 4%. So you can see that we don't really have much of a lean condition at idle. 2% and 4%, that's fine. Anything that's basically kind of under 10 is really not something that you need to worry about as far as fuel trims go. Now, what if at 3,000 RPMs, this turns into this? I just threw that in there just because. So this is a total of 18%, and this is a total of 13%. So look what happened. At speed, the fuel trims went up. Okay, when this happens, it is definitely not a vacuum leak. It is almost certainly a fuel delivery problem. Now, it could be other things. It could be a mass airflow sensor. In fact, why not? Math. Could be a bad mass airflow sensor or a dirty mass airflow sensor that might not be reading properly. If there's dirt on the wire inside the mass airflow sensor, basically air is going to rush past the mass airflow sensor, and it's not going to be able to detect the proper mass of that air. I won't go into exactly why mass airflow or how mass airflow sensors work, but it could be a dirty MAF. So one thing you might want to do is pull out your MAF, clean it off with mass airflow sensor cleaner, just a little spray. You could also use carburetor cleaner, but you know, some mass airflow sensors actually have a little coating on it, and that could, you know, wash off the coating. So I guess it's safest if I recommend you use mass airflow sensor cleaner, but a lot of people do use brake clean or carburetor cleaner and get away with it. So up to you. But let's say it is not your mass airflow sensor. What's left is you might have a fuel delivery problem, okay? If you have a fuel delivery problem, it could be a bad fuel pump, it could be a clogged fuel filter, it could be a bad fuel pressure regulator, or it could be clogged fuel injectors. Now, I'm not going to go into how to diagnose everything, all the other things. That's up to you to figure out, to test and figure out if the other things I just mentioned are bad or not. Obviously, one thing you want to do is you want to check fuel pressure. Make sure if your fuel pressure is what your specs say it should be, then you might want to think about fuel injectors. That is the end case. When your fuel pressure is okay, you can probably pretty much, and you want to check your fuel pressure when you're at idle. You also want to check it when it's at speed, because remember, the problem we're seeing here is at speed, not at idle. At idle, fuel trims are normal, enough fuel is getting into this engine and things are working properly, but at speed, something's happening with the fuel. There's not enough fuel being delivered, and so the computer is commanding more fuel trim. It wants to add more fuel in order to get a proper burn ratio. So you want to check your fuel pressure when you're at 3,000 RPMs. That way you make sure that your fuel pump can actually deliver the proper amount of fuel. So if you check your fuel pressure at idle and then you check it at 3,000 RPMs and it goes down, the fuel pressure goes down, you know you probably have a fuel pump issue. But if it doesn't go down, you can be fairly reasonably sure that your fuel pump's okay, your fuel filter's probably okay. You really should do a flow check, but most of us at home can't do that. Fuel injectors could at that point be clogged because you can't actually see the results directly in your fuel pressure testing. You can't see whether your fuel injectors are clogged or not. You would only be basically seeing it in your fuel trims. So in that case, in this particular case, if this is what's happening to you and your fuel pressure is okay, it possibly could be that your fuel injectors are clogged. So let me show you how to clean them. Now there are multiple ways that you can clean fuel injectors. Ratchets and Wrenches is a good channel. He has one particular method for cleaning fuel injectors, which involves getting a can of brake clean, putting the straw in, and then hooking up like a little concoction of bigger and bigger hoses until you get a hose that will fit around your fuel injector, and then he just sprays the cleaner, activates the fuel injector, and that sprays the cleaner through it. But you know what? Brake clean is not that strong of a cleaner, and you know, I kind of want to use. First of all, I'm not going to copy him in this video. Okay, so if you're interested in doing it that way, go check his video out. But I wanted to come up with my own way. Plus, I happen to have this fuel injector cleaner. If you're a BMW person, you probably know why. You know, there's a video out there that recommends putting this down in your cylinders when you lose compression. You know, the BMW pistons have or the oil rings have a tendency to get mucked up and kind of get frozen in. The compression rings have a tendency to get frozen in the pistons. So you pour this down, it dissolves the carbon, you leave it overnight. That has been proven to restore compression in those cylinders. So at one point I was going to do a video with this, probably doing that same process, but I never got around to it. But I just had this. So it's fuel injector cleaner. Might as well use it. The way it's intended to be used is with an actual sort of device that kind of hooks up to the fuel rail. It's basically just like a big can that you pressurize with the hose from your air compressor, and that just kind of pumps this cleaner into the fuel injectors and cleans them while they're still in the car. Don't have that, that's an expensive tool. We can just kind of make our own thing up. I'm not going to cover how to remove fuel injectors. It's actually, I think I've covered it before in my intake manifold removal video, so I will link to that in the description. You can find out how to remove these in that video. So I've just removed them already. Now I have one from an M54 engine, and then I also have one from an M56 engine because they're a little different, and I just happen to have it, so I want to show you how this setup can be used to clean both, just depending. My main tool that I'm using is just one of these little pumper sprayer things, you know, it locks. So just one of those kinds of things. This is what I used for, a long time ago as my brake pressure bleeder. So I still have it. I've modified it. I've put a little gauge on the side of it. You don't need to do that. You can just get this out of the box. These are cheap, man. I probably got this for $15. I'm sure Harbor Freight has it for $10. All I did here was I just got a little barb connector. I'm not going to take it off because it's really hard to get these off, but it's basically this, a little barb, and then on the end it's actually I believe quarter inch male imperial pipe threads, real standard, okay? They sell those adapters in every hardware store here in America, and you can get them in all barb sizes, so depending on how big your actual hose is, you can just get one that has the proper barb size. Incredibly easy to find. Okay, so you want to go with the quarter inch male imperial pipe threads because, well, number one, that just happens to be the size for the M56 connectors, all of them. So that's just a convenient way to hook this up to an M56 fuel connector. I didn't buy it because of that. I bought it because I happen to have this fitting, you know, for an airline, for an air hose already. So these are just pretty standard. It's the easiest thing to find. This is the same fitting as that, so I did that, okay? And then what I did, well, this is the same exact fitting. Then what I did was I just got a hose that fit over that, which happened to be, I believe, 7/16, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, like 7/16, okay? So the hose that I'm using is just about 7/16, pretty sure there. And that just happens to be just the right size to fit over this fuel injector. Okay, I actually have to take off this little O-ring in order to do it, so I'll do that real quick. So you can see that that just happens to be the perfect size to fit over that fuel injector. And it fits pretty good too. There's no need to bother with a clamp. I can actually pressurize this pretty good. And you don't really need to pump it under a huge extreme amount of pressure. It'll just, you know, the rubber kind of holds it on there just fine. Since I've taken this connection off when I was cleaning out this a second ago, I need to go ahead and put some thread tape back on that. So I got the Teflon tape on there. So I've just got this little test stand thing set up here just for the purposes of demonstration in this video. You absolutely don't need this. This is just, you know, to kind of hold it so that we can see it easier, but you can just do this right on, you know, you can just lay this right in there and just do it that way. It's not really a big deal at all. So I'm going to put some of the cleaner in there. I've already got cleaner in there from before. Let's just make sure the level is good. Now, we need a way to trigger this fuel injector. Once we pump this thing up, get some pressure in here, we need a way to trigger it. Now, you can just go ahead and get just some jumper wires. And all you got to do is just, you know, touch your jumper wire to your car battery. I've got a car battery up here for testing purposes. But if you're going to do it that way, I highly suggest you get somewhat long leads and you put your battery, you know, over there, because every time you touch the negative cable on the negative terminal, you're going to make some sparks, or the positive cable, doesn't matter. Every time you touch the final connection to the battery, you're going to make some sparks. And what you're doing here with any kind of cleaner, no matter what it is you're aerosolizing it. So you don't want sparks near aerosolized fuel, okay? So try to be as safe as you possibly can, all right? One thing I do want to mention is you don't have to use this cleaner if you don't want to. You can go ahead and use lacquer thinner. If you can't find this, use lacquer thinner, but make sure that it's the good lacquer thinner that has the acetone, methanol, and toluene in it. If you're in California, for instance, you can't really get the good lacquer thinner anymore. It's all basically just all acetone, which should work okay, but not like the real stuff. So that's why I'm using this, because I'm here in California. I can't get real lacquer thinner anymore. You could also use Berryman's Chem Dip. That would be a good thing to use as well. So rather than use jumper wires and, and that whole thing, I'm going to use this product, which I have. This is a fuel injector tester. This is what it looks like. This was like under $20 on Amazon. I'll throw a link if you're interested in this. This is really good. This is for doing a fuel injector leak down test, or a fuel injector balance test, I should say. What it will basically do is when your fuel injectors are still in the car, you hook this up to each fuel injector in turn. You prime the fuel pump. You need to hook up your fuel pressure gauge at the same time. You prime your fuel pump, okay, and you activate this. And what this does is it pulses a fuel injector for a certain number of times, and there are 3 different modes. You can have like a bunch of short pulses, a bunch of medium pulses, or one long pulse. And what that does is it drops the fuel pressure to a specific to a specific place. And what you want to do is compare each fuel injector in turn. And if one fuel injector doesn't drop as much as the other ones, that's one way to know that that one fuel injector might be clogged. Or if you have one fuel injector that drops way more than all the others, that's one way to know that that fuel injector is leaking. So that's what this device is for. I'm just going to use it because it's a real convenient way for me to be able to trigger this fuel injector safely. So since this device is really, really cheap, I needed to modify it a little bit. You can see that the cord is not very long at all. And all it came with was these sort of crimped ends here, these sort of standard little terminal ends. So what I did was I made some extension leads that gave me alligator clips. And the alligator clips are nice and easy to hook on to the fuel injector. So all I'm going to do is hook it on like that. You can see we have power. I'm going to go to the medium mode. Okay, I'm going to show you what it looks like without pressure, what it sounds like. See, it fired that fuel injector really rapidly a bunch of times. So now all we need to do really is pressurize this thing, and you don't need like a lot of pressure either. I'm wondering if this is actually doing anything. Now, it might have a leak somewhere. Hang on. I see. I hate when the rubber slips off. See if we can fix this up. Put that back on. Maybe get our test going back on here. Okay, sounds like it's working now. Yeah, when the rubber slips off, it's time for plan B. Okay, we should have some pressure in there now. Now let's see what happens. Ooh, we got some leakage. Got some leakage. Oh, nobody likes leakage. That's never good. Okay, let's go ahead and pulse. There we go. Now we are running our cleaner through that fuel injector. Pretty nice. Now you don't want to put too much pressure in this thing because you want to be able to open it without it, spraying on you. So that's really all you need to do. And that's it, man. That is it. That's all we really need to do. Now you didn't need any of this fancy equipment. Could have just done this with jumper wires. Simple. This is under 20 bucks. And the fittings will probably cost you another, I don't know, $5, something like that. Pretty inexpensive. You got to buy some cleaner. You don't have to buy this cleaner. Like I said, you can buy lacquer thinner. That's probably for just a little like 1 liter. It's probably like $10 or so. So you can clean your fuel injectors for pretty cheap. And don't worry about clearing this all out. I mean, if you want to, you can run gasoline through it if you don't want this fuel injector cleaner to get into your engine and all. But I doubt it will hurt anything. I've actually done this already, and then I put them back in the car and run them, and everything was fine. So that is it, guys. That is my method for cleaning fuel injectors. Pretty quick, pretty easy, fairly cheap. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more. I'm the 50s Kid. Thanks a lot for watching.